Okay, so let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many more people are, and then I can, James has a template that he would like me to email you, so, and I'll put it in Teams as well. Anyway, so just a little bit of housekeeping. I sent an invite for the December meeting on December 3rd. It's going back to Thursday that week. It kind of seemed to work out for everybody, so hopefully that'll stick. And I think we're just gonna, if it's okay with you guys, I think we can maybe do some planning. I might send out a survey before that meeting just to get your feedback on what you'd like to do next semester. Any guests you'd like to have at our meetings, topics you'd like to cover, all that kind of stuff. So maybe we'll just do that in kind of an end of the semester celebration type thing. So maybe we'll all have cookies. I don't know. We'll have to do them separately, I guess. I don't know. If we were on campus, right, we could all just meet and have tea and cookies and cupcakes. I don't know. But anyway, so I know James has quite a bit he wants to cover today. So I'm going to let him take over, and I may have to turn off my camera in a little bit because I'm gonna have something delivered. So if it gets noisy, I'm gonna turn off my camera and walk away, but I'll be right back. All right, take it away, James.
Thanks, Diane. Yeah, I have a very simple topic today that I started to plan, and then I'm like, oh my God, this is a 4-hour, and it just kept expanding. Sometimes, you know, the simplest things are the hardest to explain, and it's been a while. You know, we're talking a lot about assessment, and then in March, assessment kind of didn't get put away, but it was like Zoom, and Kaltura, and D2L. So it's kind of getting back to my roots. So that's good. Today we're going to talk about backward course design and assessment and a little bit of other stuff. Again, it's a lot, so we're not going to get too in depth, but we will have one opportunity for practice. Trying to keep it useful for you. So maybe this could be like a jump start on planning for next semester. So there is some optional homework at the end. Homework meaning if you want to keep working on something, you can do some stuff and then send it to me. As always, this is optional homework. But I don't have my watch here, so okay. Good. Let me share my screen. Here. Molly, I see your cat. And today is my cat's birthday. So he won't make an appearance, but I can show you. Oh, he just woke up. Can you see? Can't see myself. Okay. Enough of that. He turns 3 years old. He's 20 pounds. He's a full-grown boy. Okay, so backward course design.
You caught me on my cat, right?
Sorry?
Molly said you caught me on my cat. I have too. She was looking at your PowerPoint and trying to adjust her screen, so she didn't catch me signing it when you said it the first time when you saw her cat. But she has 2 cats.
Oh. More cats. The more cats, the better. That's my teaching philosophy. Okay. So let's start with a quick warm-up discussion. We can just spend 4 or 5 minutes. You know, again, not everybody has to speak, but what is one thing you've already identified as something to change for next semester? So maybe you're new at St. Paul College and you're getting used to the students, or maybe you're teaching this particular course for the first time and then next semester might be a second time. So what is one thing you've identified as something you already like to change? You're already thinking about how you're going to do it better next semester.
I would like to reorganize my modules for in my D2L modules for one of my classes because, and that's actually something, I know you're going to send out that survey, Diane. That's actually something I'd like more training on is how to organize D2L modules. Because right now, one of my classes has both week by week, but then there's also the content module since the content span more than 1 week at a time. And I think it's helpful for students to have a folder where they can see all the content for one subject or one topic rather than having to see it week by week. But then I think it's confusing to have both weeks and topics. So anyway, that is one thing I would like to improve for next semester.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you have a course laid out in the way you want it to be, but then translating that into the D2L format can be tricky. You have to make some choices. Okay, anybody else?
Well, I'll speak. I'm doing some Quality Matters workshops online, and I'm picking up some tips on how to improve my online courses because a lot of our program content for the respiratory care program wasn't designed to be online, and it needs some definite work. And I mean, one easy win is just doing like a course overview video and having a standard if you will, platform that all courses so students can navigate through the course easier.
Okay. So Kim wants to apply some quality matter standards to her course. That's great. I think, Issa, you've also taken some QM training. And I know I've talked with Diane about next semester, maybe introducing QM to you, new faculty specifically. So that's great. I will say that Quality Matters is kind of online course design standards. And I do infuse those standards into all of my training. So the things we're talking about today is heavily influenced by Quality Matters. So if this makes sense to you, there may be an avenue for you to explore. I think Deborah, I saw, also signed up for a course. Cool. Okay, Molly, you had something?
Yes. I want to develop a discussion forum. So, you know, I could have a question or to get their questions answered or something. So my goal for second semester is to try to grade every week because, you know, now there's so that we've been doing the videos and the students have to film themselves, and because of the end of the semester, the video and the grading, there's a lot of work. So I just want to try and streamline that for the second semester.
Streamline grading and more discussion, a little more interaction, some discussion forums.
Yes.
Celia is asking if we offer a QM review for, yes, we do have stuff in place for peer review in St. Paul College, like unofficial Quality Matters reviews. So I don't have time to talk about that now, but maybe there's a website you can check out, and then I can follow up on QM opportunities at St. Paul College. Definitely. Okay, so let's keep moving here. And this comes from Quality Matters. Speaking of QM, backwards course design means starting with the end first and then designing everything. And in learning, the end are your learning outcomes. I call them LOs. So you can say LO, LO, LO. But learning outcomes, some people call them learning objectives as well. That's fine. We agreed on outcomes. I don't know how it was agreed, but we just agreed. We'll just use outcomes here. So starting with the end in mind, starting with your learning outcomes, then making sure your assessment is properly measuring student success for those outcomes specifically, and then choosing activities and materials that support students. So this is called backwards course design, and then these four items, Quality Matters uses the term alignment to make sure that they're properly in place and they're all, working towards the same goal. Okay. So today we're going to talk about three things, but really focusing on the first one. The ABCs of backward course design, assessing course learning outcomes, breaking it down into chunks, and choosing materials and activities. Again, today's limited, so we're mostly doing A. And then your homework, if you want to continue with B and C, I will have a template for you to use there. Okay.
Can you just hold off before you speak, James? Because I'm in the building and they're announcing something. So just give me a second, okay?
Okay, sure,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay, they're done. Thank you for
Okay,
your
everyone,
patience.
be careful, don't get locked in the building, Belinda. I know.
No, I let them know that I was here for a meeting, but it's just an announcement for all the people who, to leave, to
Yeah.
let them know that the building is going to be locked, but we can leave. So anyway, and when I found out that the meeting was at 3 o'clock instead of 1 o'clock, I went down and told security, so I'm fine.
Okay, good.
Anyway, I just had the announcement. I wouldn't have been able to hear you. Thank you.
Okay, so the ABCs of backwards course design, we'll start with assessments. So assessing course learning outcomes, ideally we're starting with good learning outcomes. Good learning outcomes that are well-written, specific and measurable, are measured at least once in a course. And at the end of this, good learning outcomes can help you generate data, not just for the students to know how they did, but for you to know how students are doing in the course and how maybe your teaching impacts that. So when we have good learning outcomes and good assessments, you can generate some information for yourself to improve the course the next time you teach it. If you don't like the learning outcomes you have, which happens, that is something to talk about with your department chair and your dean, and other instructors, obviously, in your department. I know the college has been revising lots of learning outcomes in the past couple of years since I've been here at St. Paul College. But there may be some old ones floating around there that maybe you think aren't specific and measurable. So you're teaching the course, but you think the learning outcomes can be improved. That is an official process at St. Paul College we have to go through. So talk to your dean and other instructors in your department. Basically, you would draft some improvements. You would work with me and then have your dean also approve them and then go through the AASC official committee. But I think we've done a pretty good job on learning outcomes. So we'll talk, so now let's talk about assessment. So there's two different kinds of assessment. Again, some of this may be review. So summative assessment and formative assessment. Summative assessment is at the end of your course. It's kind of the final check on the course learning outcomes. At the end of the course, did the students achieve these? Did they succeed? That is not necessarily the same thing as the grade. It will be reflected in their grade, but did the students learn the material? Can they show that they learned it through an assessment? That is a summative. It's a summary at the end. Formative assessment is something we want to do early and often. Formative assessment is a chance for you to give feedback to the students and also for you to check the progress of the students along the way. So I stole this Candyland assessment image from, who was this from? This is from Carrie Miller at Mankato. I think she used this in one of her presentations. She's another instructional designer. And she uses this to explain the difference between formative assessment and summative assessment. Basically, we start here in the beginning and all along the way, early and often, we're checking the students. And at the end of this, we'll talk about how to build in these formative assessments into your course design so that you're not just doing them when you remember to. There's a ways to build this into the course design by breaking things down into small pieces and planning ahead. Oh, I'm going fast here. Again, formative assessment, give timely feedback. So timely, just when they need it along the way, not at the end. If they get all the feedback at the end, they don't have a chance to improve it because the course is over. Student performance to help them as the course activity progresses. How can they improve going forward? And summative assessments come at the end of the learning activity or course to measure their achievement. Did they reach the goals that are stated in learning outcomes? So for the student, they get the summative assessment and that's it. They move on to the next course in the program. However, you can use the summative assessments for yourself or for your department as a way to kind of quality control the course, to identify areas to improve the course. So when you have good assessments, you can use them, the students can use them to learn about how they did, but you can use them to identify things you need to improve. Okay, so going back to the concept of alignment, the task you use to measure student success should align or match with the intended outcome. So we look at this little chart. Yeah. Sorry, I'm moving the Zoom bar. Here's an outcome. Students will be able to identify the bones in a human body. Students will be able to identify the bones in a human body. How are you going to assess that? Let's look at the verb here. The verb is identify. Identify in the big scheme of things, in Bloom's taxonomy, is a lower level verb. It's being able to recognize or identify a thing. One way to assess that may be just an exam, right? Multiple choice or matching questions, or maybe bones in the human body. Maybe you have a graphic, a skeleton, and then some of the bones are labeled and they have to attach the name to the label. So that could be that's an appropriate assessment for a verb like identify. Outcomes. Students will be able to analyze the results of a lab test. Assessment. They'll write a lab report. Okay, that makes sense, right? They report the results and then they have to, through writing, right, through words, this is a higher level activity. They have to analyze the results. And I'm not a scientist, so I don't know what they would analyze, but analyze. I'm just thinking like CSI. We analyze in the test results. Outcomes. Students will be able to construct a window frame. So St. Paul College, we have a lot of career programs and technical programs that involve physical activity or doing something physically, psychomotor. And how would they assess this? How would you assess this? You'd have the students build it. Maybe early on, you would ask them to draw a window frame and label the parts, but that would just be a small step along the way. At the end of the course, right, in the summative assessment, they should really be building a window frame with their, with the tool, with everything. So the assessment can be a practical exam or project, building a frame. Performance indicator. So this is something on the handout that we're going to work on. This is like what result from the assessment shows that they achieved success. So maybe section C of the final exam is about bones, and if they get 70% of section C correct, that's passing. This language comes from program assessment. So if you've been at St. Paul College in a previous capacity as an instructor, you may be familiar with this. When we're assessing a program, we need to come up with these performance indicators. So this is not necessarily the same thing as a grade. This is more like you looking at the course, like how much should the student be doing to demonstrate success. Same thing, let me go to the last one here. Performance indicator, the window frame that they build meets 3 out of 4 rubric standards. So you create a rubric. a window frame should be, I don't know, the window should slide up and down. Everything should be measured correctly. The nails shouldn't be sticking out. I don't know. I'm trying to think back to carpentry. So you have 4 different standards. You have a rubric, and the student needs to get 3 of the 4 rubric items as passing in order to demonstrate success. Okay, any questions?
No, but James, I'm really happy you mentioned program review, because
Yes.
if you haven't done it yet, you will. All of you will.
Yeah, I'm trying to align this with program assessment as well. So again, this is not the same thing as the grade. This doesn't mean passing, but this is just kind of you or your department deciding what student success looks like. So, so now let's take a little bit of time to practice. We're going to give you a form. So Diane emailed you a form.
I
So
put it in the chat as well, and
Okay.
it's also in our team site. So you have a couple places to find it.
Okay, so take a couple minutes and download and open up this form. And I want you to choose a course that you're teaching next semester. If you don't know what you're teaching next semester, that's fine. You can choose a course you're teaching now. Doesn't really matter, so I guess it's up to you. So-
Okay, could you just hold on talking while she downloads the
yep.
forms?
Sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Belinda. When I'm hungry and I'm teaching or leading a session, I start to ramble a little bit. So this is because I didn't eat enough. My lunch was too small today. Normally I'm actually pretty quiet, but when I'm hungry, for some reason I'm like, gives me a weird surge of energy. So did everyone download the form? You can just give me a thumbs up. Yep. Okay, so open it up. And the next step is to download the assessment form, choose a course you're teaching next semester, and then look at the course learning outcomes, either from the syllabus or the course outline for the course. And again, if you don't know where to find all this, you can choose a course you're teaching this semester. That's fine too. And then in this box, course learning outcome, we're just going to start with maybe 2 or 3. So put in, the first, second, and third learning outcome and just paste it into this box. Students will be able to, whatever. Remember, you can't change these, even if you don't like them. This is part of the fun. So the course learning, you have to use the ones that you are given. You can change almost everything else, but you cannot change these. You have to go through the official process. Okay. Thank you, Celia, for the link. Yeah, you can search for the course. Okay, and then we're going to give you a few minutes, maybe 6 or 7 minutes. How are we? Okay, we're doing okay on time. To come up with a couple of assessments. So again, choose just two or three of the outcomes and write down what assessment you would like to use. And this is a summative assessment. So this is near the end of the class or at the end of the student learning this skill. What assessment do you have in mind? Okay, and performance indicator. What does success look like? So if the assessment is, okay, so this really you need to do you need to design some sort of rubric, unless it's a multiple choice exam, so we don't have time to do that now. But in your mind, like, what does a successful student look like doing this skill? You know, if the assessment is the outcome, students will be able to take a blood sample. The assessment is they're gonna practice. All right, I think they do practice in the, was it phlebotomy program? They do practice on live patients. So the performance indicator would be they'll get 99, I don't know, out of 100 blood samples without the patient yelling out loud. I don't know. They'll be able to locate the vein within 30 seconds. Again, I don't know. So choose 2 or 3 outcomes. And in the form, fill out an assessment and the performance indicators. Okay? And we'll check back in here in about 6 or 7 minutes, and then we'll have you pair up.
So what you want us to do is put in the outcomes, right?
Yes, sorry, Molly, put in the outcomes and then think of an assessment for 2 or 3 of the outcomes. How will you assess that outcome? I say one more minute.
So what do you want us to do next after the outcomes?
To write an assessment for a couple of the outcomes. Mhm. Okay, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna break you up into pairs. And we just want you to share what you've been working on, what is your outcome, and explain to your partner what your assessment is and why you think it's a good assessment. Why, sorry, not good. Why you think it's an appropriate assessment. So think about the verb that's used in the learning outcome, and then think about the action or the activity that the student is doing, right? Do they match up? You know, go back. If we look back at this one, you know, matching questions, those are a good assessment for, an appropriate assessment for identifying bones in a human body. A lab report is probably an appropriate assessment to analyzing results of a lab test. And building a frame is a pretty darn good assessment for students being able to construct a window frame. So again, we'll just give you 4 or 5 minutes together. Just share what you have. And if you have any feedback, you can go ahead and give it. So Diane, we're gonna pair up in breakout rooms.
When I look away from what looks like looking at you, I'm actually looking at you on a different screen. So I have two monitors. So I have one that's bigger and it's easier for me. So I'm not ignoring you. I am looking at you.
Yeah, no problem. So back to assessments. As I said before, we want to assess early, often, and at the end. So we talked a little bit about a summative assessment, right? How you're going to measure the end of the course, the successful completion of the course learning outcomes. Now let's talk about breaking down your course into smaller pieces to kind of build in some formative assessment. We go back to the ABCs, so we're now on B, breaking it down into chunks. So time for a quick question. How do you organize your course? I know, yeah, Isa, this is what you're tackling right now.
Yeah.
What smaller units do you use to plan a 16-week semester? Do you use weeks? Do you use modules of a different length? Do you do it by book chapter or book unit or somehow else? So what do you do?
For my advanced writing and grammar class, I do it by book chapters, and that works really well.
Mm-hmm.
And Molly said that works the same for me.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it really just depends on the course. Some I do by modules, others I do by weeks, and just depends on the course.
Yeah, for me, the module and the week are the same thing. I just name the module, but they really are weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
What
again,
I,
this, oh, go ahead.
what I do is I organize by the book units and chapters into weeks.
Mhm.
So,
So you break up the book into to fit into the weeks. Again, there's no wrong answer
right.
for this one. It's whatever fits you, or fits the course, or fits the book. But it's just, this will be your unit of measurement. And we'll call this a module. So the module can be a week, or the module can be something else. We're just going to use the word module, because that's what Quality Matters used. And it's just good to use, to have a shared understanding of a word. So we want to break down our course into smaller pieces to organize it and to assess things along the way. So we break it down into modules of your own choosing. And then what we can do, and this is where things start to get a little more advanced, is take your course learning outcomes and break them down into smaller module learning outcomes. Each module learning outcome is written in the same way as a course learning outcome, right? It's measurable, it's specific, it has an action verb, but it's a smaller piece of the course learning outcome. So if you say at the end of a course, the student needs to do this, what smaller steps does the student need to achieve, or before they get to the end? And these module learning outcomes, the module learning outcomes will advance in difficulty as the course goes on, building up towards the course learning outcome. And then once you have your module learning outcomes, you can organize your course so that all of the module activities are geared or designed to help them complete the module outcome. So I'm not going to lie, this is a fair bit of work. It's a new way to think about your course. It's more work for you, but once you finish this first step, it's actually, I think, less work. Once the module learning outcomes are written, and once you make sure that they cover everything, then you can break down your course module by module and plan what the students will do and how they'll be assessed. Okay. Let's look at an example. Very boring example. Write a persuasive essay. Okay. The final assessment, I don't know, 5-page essay with cited sources. So writing, students will write. What are some module level outcomes that could be a part of it? Maybe not all of them, but some of them. Formulate a thesis statement. Maybe that's early on, because that's kind of the foundation of a old-fashioned essay course. The old thesis statement. Differentiate between topic and supporting sentences. Maybe do that in week 4. Cite sources using MLA formatting. That's a little more advanced. Maybe we do that after the midterm in week 8. Draft an essay, week 13. So again, these are all formative assessments. None of these are summative assessments for the course learning outcome. But you can create an assignment to assess each of these along the way. So the final assessment's an essay, but in week 2, they're going to practice thesis statements, and you can have some sort of assignment that will check that they're doing well and give them feedback. In week 4, you can give them an assignment where they have to differentiate between these sentences. Then you give them a grade and give them some feedback. In week 8, they have an assignment where maybe they just need to take some books, give them some book titles, and they need to write some MLA formatted citations. Again, smaller pieces along the way. Okay, let's keep moving. We're running out of time here, and I've already answered the question here on the assessments. Okay, part C, choosing materials and activities. So once you have broken down your course broken down into modules, for each module, you have some goals or outcomes. What materials and activities do students need to encounter to achieve the goals? We can have a quick discussion, maybe just a couple of people want to answer. As a teacher who is naturally in love with my subject, me, so James, I often found it hard to cut things out. How do we prevent ourselves from overloading students with interesting but not necessary content? The eternal question, right? You love your topic, you love your subject that you teach. You just want to give them everything. How can we stop ourselves from doing that? Maybe it's a rhetorical question that you don't need to answer.
I know in my field, one thing that helps me is we have a certification exam that our students take at the end, and it has a rubric or a matrix to it. And I just really make sure I cover content from the matrix first. And then if I have time, I can fill in with the nice to know stuff.
Yeah, nice to know versus need to know.
Correct.
The eternal.
And then there's nuts to know too, you know.
I like that. Okay. Again, we're running out of time, so I'll just briefly talk about, how can we promote active learning online? We did talk about this the last time I was with you all as a group. We did talk about some of these ways to translate face-to-face learning to online learning. So just keep this in mind, and we'll probably go into this in more depth in the future. And finally, again, this is a huge question. There's many other questions related to this. How can we take steps to choose materials that reflect the lived experiences of our students? Again, we don't have to answer this now. One of many things to keep in our minds when we're choosing materials. Okay, so taking it further, create a course map. So this is some optional homework, again, completely optional. It's up to you, right, Diane? Choose a course you'll teach next semester and download the course mapping template from this website. Fill in the course module outcomes. So list your assessments and add activities and then send to me. So we'll put this in the team site along with all the slides. We'll put all of this on the team site, and let me show you the course map quickly. Okay, can you see this? No? Okay, wrong share. There we go. So on the Teaching and Learning website, which I know you visit every day, it's your homepage. Again, under Employees, Teaching and Learning, go down to, is it here? Yes, Course Design, Quality Matters. And Celia, this is a place you could look for just some basic information, but I'll also explain this to you. And if you go to the bottom, ignore all that, click on the alignment mapping template and download it from here. And basically, this is just a grid for you to plan out your course.
Cool.
I may have shared this with a few of you already. Basically, your name, the course learning outcomes, the official ones, you cannot change. And then create some module outcomes for each module, list the activities, the learning materials, and the assessments. So this is some optional homework. I am working on getting another example. So I do have some faculty members who have done this recently, and I'm going to ask a couple of them if I can share a real life sample. So this is this is what we've talked about today. This is just some more practice and for you to, if you take it as far as you want. And I am available to meet with you. You can send it to me, you can schedule a meeting and we can talk about it in detail. I will say that the most important thing is these module outcomes. Highlight, there we go. Highlight. So maybe what I would recommend doing is if you do want to work with me, is you do these first. You know, take your course learning outcomes and break them into smaller chunks. Make sure each one starts with an action verb that's measurable. And then send that to me and we can talk about that. And then once that's good, this stuff is much easier. Activities, materials, and assessments. Okay, we got 4 minutes to spare. That's all I have for you today. I'll kick it back to you, Diane. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you, James. That's great. And one good thing about doing the course map this way is that once you go to put everything in your D2L shell, it makes life a lot easier, right? Because then you just can copy and paste your outcomes into each module. It's really easy then to kind of organize your brain. If you're anything like me, I would get in there and like, what did I already have an assessment for this thing? And so it really kind of keeps you where you need to be. And James is always open for, not always open, but you know, he has time for one-on-one consultation. So if you want to talk to him about your spring courses that are coming up, anytime he's available. And we will probably just do some of these kind of helpful little things going forward as well. But are there any questions that you have for James or while you've got him here? That's how thorough you were, James. That's how awesome that presentation was. It was very good.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'll respect your time. I'll give you a couple minutes back. Oh, one thing that I wanted to add is that if you have not yet, let me know a time and day that works to have me come into your course. Just let me know. I owe a couple of you some forms back, which I will be doing very soon. But otherwise, just shoot me a quick email. I'll probably send you one if you haven't set that up with me yet as well. So anyway, I hope you guys all have a good restful weekend. Enjoy yourselves because it's about to get crazy, right?
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.